Just
No, there's three. There's three.
Huh?
It's 4
There's
now.
three.
I cannot see.
Yeah. We'll admit, okay? I'll just admit. Well, there's 11, in fact.
Oh, okay. Wow.
It's all
Hello,
somehow.
Joshua. Hi, Jean. Hi, Eric.
Hello.
Hi,
No,
guys.
not the Eric. Eric Dinardi.
Hello, Eric. Yes.
Good evening, everybody.
So it's only through the chat that we can see conversations, right?
Yeah, I mean, let's see how it builds. If it's a small, intimate group, then maybe we can just have everybody just come on video and talk about it. That would be an interesting approach as well.
So far, everybody has been quite camera shy. So yeah.
So let's see how it builds in terms of the crowd. If we have a bigger crowd, then we have to go with that, chat approach. If we have a small crowd, let's open everybody's mics. Let's just have an open, candid conversation. Let's talk about things. I think that will be definitely interesting as well. So let's see how it builds. Let's see how it builds. Yep.
Jean, hello.
Hey, all. I think my mic was muted just now. Hey, hi Jeff, hi
all right.
Brian. Hi guys.
Where's your space age background? I mean, yesterday it was very
Shifted
spacey.
Shifted house.
Oh, you shifted house. Good that you have choices.
Yeah. Is my mic soft?
No, I think we hear you. We hear you nicely.
Cool. Thanks.
I'm currently in a full screen mode, which I can't get out of.
You just double click on anywhere.
Oh, thank you, Jeff.
Cool. I'm becoming a bit of a Zoom expert.
Day
by day. At first it was like, where, what,
So
I can hear
tell me,
myself,
guys,
I can hear you.
Does Raw have to pay for Zoom?
Yes.
Yeah, of course.
I bought a
year thing.
A year's
Okay.
package. Yeah, so that we can have more features, more people, more time, and all that nonsense. Yeah.
So when Ellen went for it on her individual license, it's based on a per month, and it's about $26 here per month.
Right.
Yeah.
I have no idea how much I paid for.
And they say that you can use it for more than 40 minutes. But even before her license, she could use it for more than 40 minutes anyway.
Because of the fact of the recent happenings, Zoom decided to give people more time.
Okay.
Yeah. Some people had an extended time as opposed to that standard for 40 minutes or something like that.
Right.
Yeah. Somehow I don't know what was the procedure for them.
Change 3 mics to 5.
Okay. Brian talking to his spaceship to change lighting. He got no switch one. He's either fucking lazy. Then you don't want to even go and touch the switch.
He's a proper example of what practice should be done at home. Don't touch anything.
Yeah.
Changing 2 mics to 1.
Hi everyone, can you say hello in the chat group? Introduce yourself so that we get an idea of who you are, where you're from, and your IGs, etc.
Hi Eric.
Hello.
David here.
Hi
Eric's
David.
Instagram.
David.
Something wrong with Eric's Instagram. Eric.
Oh yes. That's the one, Jeff.
Which one?
I've put it on the chat, EUIXL photo. I just decided to move it to EUIXL photo.
Okay, so Nico, you can check it out at EYXL. YXL.photo. Photo, no
No,
dot.
not yet. Can you see it in the
Yep.
chat? Yeah.
Yep. So you can, yeah, he's changed it. That's his Instagram.
David, it's been a long time. The last time I saw you was with Jeff and what's that guy's name?
Adrian.
The
Adrian.
retoucher guy, right?
Yes. With Jeff
What's his
and
name again? What's his name again?
Adrian
Summerlin.
who?
Adrian Summerlin.
Adrian Summerling.
Yes.
That's right. Yeah, okay,
Yes.
that's right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. The workshop.
Shooting guns.
How are you?
Okay, fine. Thanks, Jeff.
All right.
Following you.
Super. Awesome. Thank you. Thanks for the support. Lovely. From Croatia. Oh, that's lovely, Nico. Awesome. Lovely having you. How did you hear about us, Nico? Well, if you want to get on the mic, you know, by all means. If not, you can always, yeah. How did you know about our events and Raw in itself?
I think he's trying to figure out the mic. That's what I love about this whole thing. You can reach out to anybody anywhere.
Yeah,
Yep.
we've got
Amazing.
very cool people from very random places. Awesome. Lovely stuff, Nico. I'm looking through your Instagram. Beautiful underwater stuff. Lovely.
I wonder if you can dive in Croatia.
I mean, he is, isn't he?
Is this I don't know. Let me look at the map. I'm not very good with the geography.
Adriatic Sea. Wow, lovely. I mean, you know.
Ah, okay, there.
Really nice. Cool. Yeah, do tell us how you heard about us. How do you hear about Raw and tonight's event? Interesting. It reached all the way to Croatia to you. Ah, okay. Cool. Who else? Hi, Delvin. Delvin from Malaysia. Hello. Awesome. AC. AC, where are you from? I've never seen you before, I think. B. B, have we seen you before?
Okay, so before we begin, guys, today we are a little bit thin on the viewership. So if you don't mind, for those who have been with us for the last few weeks, just go to Facebook, maybe share the link to what we're going to share in the next 2 hours, and then just help us out with some advertising. Yeah, just help us share this out to anyone that you think would be possible, to come on, joining us, and also who's interested to hear from a very, very great photographer, Eric. Yeah.
Cool. Hi, Kok Hong. Lovely. Nico, you're back. Lovely.
With a nice portrait. Wonderful. We know what you look like now.
So can you hear me?
Yes. Who's this?
Nico. It's Nico.
Ah, lovely. Hi, Nico. How are you doing?
Good.
Lovely.
So about your
Cool.
question before, how I
Yes.
heard about Raw and everything.
Uh-huh,
I
uh-huh.
just, like I said in the chat, I'm just kind of more looking for, photographers that are doing similar photography that I want to do. So commercial fitness, lifestyle, and just kind of searching. I somehow ran into you, and then kind of saw this Raw page and everything that's going on these days and months.
Okay. Right. Oh, lovely having you. Thank you for joining us.
No problem.
It's always nice to have friends from halfway across the globe. I think that's the beauty of what's happening at the moment. We get to expand our horizons with very, very little borders.
Very true.
Awesome. Lovely. Okay, just a few more minutes, maybe 1 or 2 more minutes, and then we'll start proper. Yeah. I mean, we've got a nice intimate group, which is kind of nice, which makes me think, if we don't go above 25, 30, perhaps we can just do a little, unmute of everybody, and whoever has a question, put up your hand, or just say something, and then we will keep it very, very open like that. It's nice to change things up a bit, because our format has always been we talk, you listen, you ask a question over the chat, and we answer. Kind of cold actually, So if we have a small intimate group, it would be kind of nice to open it up and hear some voices, see some videos of people, etc. All right? Yeah, awesome. Let's start. I think, Brian, shall we?
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay, cool. So let me see how many people are there now. Wow. Okay.
18. So that's
coming
about
close to 20. And just you guys come on. Let me take a look at your faces if we can, okay. And if you want to come on board as well, at first I saw David and then suddenly disappear, Yeah, you're back. Nico as well, you can speak, okay. So guys, this is a really, really small group, and we are all so far away from each other. I think having to see some faces bring back, some positivity in this grim world that is starting to become a norm, and I fucking hate it. So the news came out yesterday, and then photography is not part of what's going to recover. Yeah, I'm not doing very well as well. I think you guys are. So let's rally together, show your face, let us hear your voices, and show that we are all here together.
Yeah. I mean, to add a little bit insight for our friends from across the border and around the world, Singapore just announced officially yesterday that we are going into a 3-phase opening up of the economy of the country, and to come out of lockdown, but it is still not a complete open. So the first phase of opening, which will take about the next month of June, will essentially be very essential services that opens up, followed by a couple more months of very slow opening of the economy of the country. So photography in itself, that business has not been considered an essential at the moment. So we as photographers, we are still figuring things out. The Professional Photographers Association of Singapore is trying to figure out and reach out to the authorities to see if they could represent photographers and speak up for us and see what they can do in terms of putting us into a slightly more considered group to allow us to start making small steps into getting our living back, so to speak. But I think it will still take a while, and so it's not exactly great news, but that in essence allows us to do more of this kind of stuff, I guess. So anyway, let me start off by saying thank you for joining us. And tonight we have a dear friend of mine, Eric Yip, whom I had the the pleasure and honor of knowing for the last almost what 8 years, 9 years, 7.
7.5, 8. Yeah.
7.5, 8. Yeah. Okay. So yeah. So that's how I know this guy. Well, it all started with me doing an exhibition for Leica, and then he visited that exhibition. I had a talk of that exhibition, and that's how I met him. And then thereafter, we at that time I was actually starting to craft my program, my mentorship program, and then when and putting together the syllabus, the entire program in terms of that whole 2.0 thing that I've been doing to help mentor photographers. So when I met him and we started to talk, I found out that he was into recruitment and what were you in?
I was in consulting. Yeah.
Consulting, yeah.
HR consulting and training.
HR consulting. So, it piqued my interest, his job in essence piqued my interest because, I was going into this consulting mode, helping to consult on people's, careers and, as a photographer and mentor photographers and so on and so forth. So, I reached out to him to get him to be kind of my test subject and to get his trained approach to how he consults, people in HR and so on and so forth. And so that kind of kick-started my relationship with him. And then, we crafted this whole program, on based on how I would kick off the mentoring other photographers. So he was almost kind of like my test subject in terms of doing it officially. Because prior I used to mentor a lot of photographers, but it wasn't in an official capacity, so to speak. Then
so Eric,
before, carry on.
Yeah. So Eric, before that, were you already a photographer when you visited Jeff's exhibition? I mean, because you had a day job, right?
Yes, I was in a day job, so it was not my profession per se. Yeah, but I used to shoot events and weddings and bits and pieces like that, and all very, very casual, right? It was more like a pocket money type job at the time.
Okay,
then,
cool.
On my 10-year anniversary at work, after consulting, and 10 years is a long time in one company, very painful 10 years, we decided, okay, maybe we should change job. And I decided that photography was my thing. Yeah. And that's where
that was how you yeah. So that was through Jeff's mentorship and that led you deep into this right now, or you had other things in mind?
I would say so, Brian. My decision to become a photographer was independent. Yeah. And it came with all sorts of dreams and fantasies, which was not true in the marketplace. So one of the biggest things was, wow, I'm damn good, man. Yeah, my photography can make money and no problem. I can drop my day job and get in there and make a life. But it didn't turn out that way. Yeah, it didn't turn out that way. And when I started with Jeff, that was when the truth came out, basically. And with the truth came the, what you needed to do to fix some of the problems that you have. Yeah. So yeah, that's where it started, but the decision to do it was independent of all of that. Yeah.
Cool. So Jeff, what was your first impression of him? Somebody who was part-timing photography, your weekend warrior, and then who was sick of his day job as a consultant, Yeah, what was your impression? Come on, spill.
Let me get my armor first.
Bend over, Eric. I mean, he showed me his travel pictures. He traveled a lot, quite a bit. Those pictures of India and so on and so forth that he had. And he had nothing to show for other than that, to be honest. I remember, Eric, correct? Nothing much to show for. So this entire version of Eric that you see now, all of you, if you visited his website, I'm sure you all have. It is essentially eyxl.com.au. The work that you see. Let me share screen. I tell you what. Let me
So all the questions that I've been asking, okay, it's actually very important things that allows you guys to actually get a glimpse of what potentially one person can do over a period of time if you chase after this kind of excellence. So from someone with a day job, and then I think this is a question that everybody has been asking, all this time. I have a job and I'm sick of it, whether I'm in banking or whether I'm doing an engineer job or what. Should I go and become a full-time photographer? What are the struggles? What if I don't have the talent for it and things like that? So the questions that I've been asking Eric and Jeff at the same time is to give you this glimpse into the journey that Eric took, 10 years ago. And was it 10 years ago?
7 years.
7 years. 8
yeah.
years ago. See, it's close to a decade. In fact, Eric has been shooting even lesser time than me. And he's so much more older than me, right? I would think so. Let's just leave it at that. So you can see the progress of his work over a very short period of time, the style that many photographers actually struggle to get hold of. The other question that a lot of photographers always ask is, how do I define my style? And if you look at Eric's work, it's very definitive of the style that he's working with. He's very strong in terms of like his color grading, what he wants and things like that. So I believe that we're gonna hear more from him later on, and let's pick his brain a little bit. And therefore, I'm asking you guys to come on board to ask questions if you have. Just let's grill him for tonight.
Hey Brian, I'm very curious to know the profile of the people today. Are you full-time working? Are you a photographer?
I'm curious as well.
Enthusiast?
Yeah. I'm a full-time working
some input?
at home.
Yes. Can everyone give some input as to, are you a photographer? Do you have a day job? And what sort of shoot you do?
Please do share in the chat or speak up. Maybe speak up. Let's start with Eric Dinadi. He's from Indonesia. Yes.
Looking at Eric's works, so amazing. I'm stunned. Wow. 7 years to do all kinds of work. So nice.
Very impressive, right?
So Eric, are you a photographer, full-time photographer?
Yeah, I'm full-time photographer, but mostly I do more product and still life shoot. It's totally different to Jeff because I'm usually nervous if I shoot pretty girls or model, so I decide to just shoot product.
Well, you are the guys that are surviving now.
Yes. Okay, then we have Jean.
Thanks for that.
And Jean?
Well, I kind of met Eric 6 years ago while doing design advertising. I've stopped that on my 20th year. I'm still trying to go full-time into photography, but so far I've done events and just some small corporate headshots and all that. So I'm still struggling, and I hope I'll find my way.
Cool.
Okay.
We have David Wirawan.
Yeah, I think similar like Eric, that I also from the consulting. Then I think 3 years ago, I starting to full-time photographer. So as in the filament photography, mostly event and then sport photography. Actually, sport mostly in the.
Okay.
Cool. Now we have Nico.
Okay.
Yes. So I'm a full-time photographer. I mostly do events, but now kind of trying to transition more to commercial fitness and studio work in general.
Wow. Okay. Then Nico, do you have like a day job before this, or was photography your?
No, I was studying something different. Photography kind of started as a hobby, and it just transitioned to doing from kind of smaller student type of jobs to a full-time job, and just amassing more clients, and then it's starting to get bigger and bigger.
Okay.
So by any show of hands, did anyone actually regretted, at this point of time, being a photographer? Yeah.
Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
Okay, and on that bombshell.
Yeah.
Well, I think the decision, Brian, for me was, although it was made at that time, the whole journey had its real up and downs. So the regret came more than once, but overall it always came back to this is what you needed to do, want to do, decided to do, and you just find pockets of reasons to stay. And it's like, I suppose it's like marriage, right? It's never smooth, but when it ultimately you want to make it work, right?
Yeah.
So
And
I think the question
China.
is, that's quite a question I ask myself all the time. Do you regret it? Yeah. And I've learned to say to myself that there's no shame in regretting something. You just have to make sure that you move on with it and get it done. Work something else that will help yourself. Otherwise you waste time.
Yeah. Well,
okay, we've
talking
got
about
a few more people.
put, yeah.
We want to introduce a few other people, or you want to carry on? Carry on, huh?
Yeah, I think let's carry on. Okay. So, I mean, talking about staying in this industry, you have been kind of a mover. Let's talk about you were living in Singapore. You met Jeff in Singapore, and then now you are staying in Sydney, right? Yeah, you have moved there for how long? How long have you been living in Australia?
Okay, I'll start from the beginning. I was born in Malaysia, and I moved to Australia when I was 13. Yeah, so that was nearly 22 years ago. Then I moved back to Singapore for my corporate job, and I stayed there for 14 years. Then after photography, where I started in Singapore with Jeff, that was for 3-4 years before I left. So I've been here now for 3 years. Yeah. So that was the journey. Malaysia, Australia, Singapore, then back to Sydney.
Yeah. Okay. So I mean, moving around this much probably made a very big, I would think that it's a major barrier, because you have to understand, you were in Singapore, you were struggling to do photography, running a business out of it if you have to, like the networks that you build up over events and weddings, and then after that going to Australia, restarting everything all over again.
Yeah.
Let's hear about that a little bit, your struggles and
okay. Well, the struggles are very, very, very real, right? If you do events, you meet a lot of people, you gather a lot of cards, you give out a lot of cards, you say hello, you build relationships. Wedding, same thing. It all travels through word of mouth.
Yeah.
So everything you describe about losing the network, losing the connections is very, very substantial. All right. I never felt it more than I did when I moved back to Sydney after spending 3 years in Singapore. So my time in Singapore was actually quite, I would consider it a living. Yeah, I could make some money out of photography. I was working on some of the clients I consider, what's the word? Substantial.
Regular.
Right?
Yeah. Okay.
Regular, maybe even. Yeah. But coming back here, it was like a big boys club where nobody gets let in unless you've been in the industry for 14, 15 years, right?
Yeah.
And because I've been away for so long, there was also no relationships that I had that allowed me to build a photography business around. So up to today, the struggle is still real, and it's a lot through word of mouth. But from what I
Yeah.
talk to people about, it's a very, very commonplace situation. And you really have to invest a lot of time into the space to be able to develop a network that returns to you. Yeah. So although the struggle is really real, and I'm going through a difficult time, and I have been now for the past 1.5 years, it also is a big opportunity to really do your own work. I mean, you talked earlier about 7 years being a short time to create the type of work that I've done. It may be, especially if I started from zero. But no work meant that I had a lot of time to create work for myself, right?
Yeah.
And that's I think that's one of the big advantages you get from not having paying work. You get to do a lot of your own work and develop your own taste and portfolio.
But can I just also quickly say something, Eric? I think your work, seeing your evolution from the in its infancy to now, I can tell you just by sitting from the sidelines looking at you, your work pivoted when you moved to Australia, right? I mean, we had this conversation. We had this conversation where you were concerned about moving to Australia and having to restart and so on and so forth. But I told you, you're moving to a place where you have one of the most beautiful light in the world. Number one, you have some of the most beautiful landscape, and you got a lot of really good-looking people over there. Yeah. So I think the combination of these three things really boosted the current state of your portfolio where it stands today is because, number one, yes, you had a lot of time to do all these test shoots. Number two, you had the landscape, you had the lights, you had the talent to make this body of work look so international looking. That's exactly the push you needed. You needed to be in a space where it allowed you to breathe in that sense, right? So your work really took off when you went back to Australia, because I think in Singapore you were doing okay, but you didn't have the right tools at your disposal, I find, and that was really holding your progress as well.
Yeah. Well, that's certainly so. I think when you're in a country like Australia, where it's very, very multinational, it's a temperate seasonal country. So things change throughout the year. So you get really a whole variety of things to shoot, and your work can be guided into whatever you feel is visually exciting for you, right? For those living in Singapore, you'd have to travel to Lapland to shoot auroras. I mean, that's you just have to do that, right? So yeah, I think I am very lucky to have all these things available. Yeah.
Okay. So see, actually, I wanted to ask this question earlier, and then Jeff just nice came into this and said the beauty of being in Australia, the light, the people, and everything. Well, that makes everybody start thinking that the grass is really greener on the other side. I mean, I agree that in Singapore, to get very good lighting, or even to get like good weather throughout like 3 days, to get to do a campaign shoot and things like that, it's kind of difficult because we have no natural landscapes and things like that. And to get models to shoot is also a bit difficult comparing to the choices that maybe in America and in Australia we have. But bear in mind, there are a lot of things that we are very fortunate to have as well, that is in Singapore, that in Australia or in any other country that you can't get. Okay, the thing is that in Singapore, to put together a test shoot, it can be done in a very short amount of time. But in Australia, if the model that you want probably lives in another state, it will take at least 2 hours to fly in from Melbourne to Sydney and things like that. And then flying domestic is kind of expensive as well, right, Eric?
Oh yeah.
Okay,
it's,
so that's one.
600 to 1,000 to just get to Melbourne. Yeah.
So while the grass is always greener on the other side, but look at this as well. So for example, like Singapore is running a very difficult time right now. But if you're a product shooter, like what Eric Dinardi is doing, you can easily get products courier to you, shoot at home. All these are very easy. But in Australia, because the country is so big, it's kind of difficult to get business in a very small area unless you are very, very well known. So geographical, that means that if you're looking at business in the geographical term, it's kind of difficult to get business in such a large country or large city compared to Singapore. And also in Australia, there's 4 seasons that you have to experience. And therefore, I think your challenges to shoot certain things are also kind of difficult, right,
Yeah.
Eric?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think if I can pick up on one thing you said there, Brian, all this time that I've been spending shooting hasn't just been about fitness and sports. In fact, I shoot just about everything to try and survive and make some money. Yeah. So it became quite an opportunity to delve into different things and to lay the foundations of what I believe every photographer needs. You need different legs to stand on so that seasonally, because the market will always go up and down for one type of, whether it's weddings or product or fitness or advertising. So I shoot a lot of architecture work, which is buildings, which I can go out and shoot on my own without models, without hair, without makeup. I just need a car, my tripod, and my computer, right? Then I can go out and shoot models when I feel like shooting pretty girls or guys with really good looking heads and bodies, right? So this turned out to be quite useful for me because now I ended up with 3 completely different portfolios, and even shooting my little boy becomes hopefully a portfolio for me to look at 5 to 10 years ahead, that I can shoot consumer type of work, right? And do you mind if I share something in the chat?
Please.
So just to give you an idea, so over the past 3 years, I've been building up different portfolios to which I can go out to the market and at least tell people, look, here's some architecture work that I've done, And the truth is, now in the last 6 months or so, even before coronavirus, right? What's been keeping me afloat is all my buildings work, my corporate work, some architecture, some real estate work has come through. Construction companies use me to shoot their completed projects, interior design companies. So these are the different types of things that I try and do to pay the bills, so to speak. And it's also nice that if you have a people type portfolio and a product type portfolio as well, because people really can piss you off, right? So you can always go back and shoot product and there will be no problems. You just shoot an inanimate object and you're done. So I think it's nice and it's important looking back, and making the best out of the situation that you're in to, take the opportunity and make something of it.
Well, I have a very practical question, for you. And I think it's something that a lot of people would want to ask as well. If comparing Singapore and Australia, I understand that in Australia, the opportunities for a photographer in terms of photography opportunities is a lot. What about business opportunities? That means that do you think that it's easy for you to get jobs in Singapore compared to being in Australia? Let's talk about, when you were freelancing in Singapore and then when you're about the same level, how difficult was it to actually get jobs?
Okay. I think this is a great question. But I'll answer it through a very polarized lens. Okay. In Singapore, I have to recognize that I was in a very, very different space. Okay. First of all, I think it's a much smaller country, which means people know people who know people, right? And I was working with Jeff a lot. So much of the opportunities came through, that sort of network. Although it wasn't a direct network, I was on set all the time. Yeah, I was meeting the agencies. I knew some of the producers he knew. Yeah, the circles were very small. So I think that helped a lot, through through my association, so to speak, whether it was through being Jeff's assistant or through his program or just being in the box, so to speak, right? Compare that, just specifically that, to what I have here. Very, very difficult. So I think the opportunities here are certainly a lot more because the industry is a little bit bigger. The variety of usage of photography is a lot bigger. What people use photography for is also a lot wider. Yeah, but who you have to know is the difficult part. Yeah, and it's a very, very cliquey industry here. And when I say this, I don't mean business to consumer. I mean business to business. Because I don't do any consumer work, so I don't know about the wedding side of things or the babies or that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would say it is a big, big difference, and it was easier for me because of my circumstance, not because of my of the market. Because I was also a very different photographer 3 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Does anyone have any question for Eric pertaining to this issue or this topic that I'm talking about right here?
Oh, I have a question.
Yeah.
I saw that Eric's account in Instagram have a very different name for the architecture, for the model, and you have several names for Instagram. Is it because you want to separate your market segment?
Yes, it is. I've
Isn't
always
it hard
believed that.
to promote? Isn't it harder?
Yeah.
Will it be
So that
much
so
harder
that people
to
don't get
promote?
mixed up with their branding and people have a clear idea of what you do, right? I'm a fairly new photographer in the industry. Yeah. By that I mean I'm not a 20, 30, 40-year shooter, right? So people don't know me for my ability to deliver and my consistency, right? You get that through reputation and experience. So if I have a portfolio, I don't want to send a portfolio that is mixed with buildings and fitness athletes and models to an architecture company. Yeah. They will look at it and say, oh, you're not an architecture photographer, right? So I want the people I send my portfolio to look at it and say, this is what he does. So I have a completely different website. So what you see on Instagram is Instagram. I have an architecture website. I have a fitness and lifestyle website. Yeah, very, very separate. So that when people look at it, they are very clear of what I do.
I mean, end of day, you don't want to dilute yourself as a photographer, because once you put his architectural work, beside his fitness work in one website, one would bring the other down. It's as simple as that, right? So always, when you have very different skill sets and very different styles that are of a different genre, or try to even cut that part of you out, because you can almost see that his style, his aesthetic in his fitness is not being applied in his architectural work, and they both cannot coexist together, for example, right? So for that very simple fact, remove these two apart, market it very differently, and reach out to the right people and the right markets with that very concise and relevant portfolio. Primarily because you don't want to get one genre bringing the other genre down. Do I even make sense here? But that's
yeah. So what Jeff is trying to say is that market positioning is actually very important. This is one thing that I've always stressed to photographers, how to plan your business, because it's extremely important to know who are your target audience, and the work that you show is actually what you want to sell. For example, if let's say if you're selling chicken rice, for example, you have a store selling chicken rice, and people will come to you buying chicken rice, and suddenly, guess what? you decide to add wonton noodles, into that menu, and you're gonna realize that even if you put two together, most people will still buy chicken rice from you because that's what you are known to do. And then when you try to sell two things at the same time, maybe this person who is your regular client will start to go to someone else who specializes in something. So it's a business mistake that many people make without a specialty, but it's not exactly. I wouldn't say there's a mistake. I would say that it's a wrong targeting method to get the right job at the right price and things like that. It will hinder your progress because Asians always believe this thing. You don't want to diversify too much. You don't want to dilute your brand and things like that. But at the same time, if you specialize, for example, if I look at Eric's work as a fitness photographer, I can get jobs from gyms, I can get jobs from fitness personalities, from fitness brands, and from even any maybe a condominium that wants to shoot their gym and things like that, and just hire him to do specifically what he wants to do. Yeah, so that is a very specialized area to target the right audience, and therefore you don't have to worry too much about your pricing. Yeah, it's this is a very big chunk of how business management is supposed to be like. Yeah, I think we will eventually do something like that for you guys later on to talk about how to segregate your business plan and things like that. But let's go back to Eric. Okay. Yeah.
If
so
I could
Eric,
touch on
please.
something there. Yeah. Just on the idea of looking at your work, I think it's important to get the right eyes to look at your work, to see what you might not see as well. Yeah. Because when you're so deep into your own work, creating your own work and looking at your set of images over and over again, and your ego comes into play, and your heart comes into play, and your wife comes into play, your mother loves your work, right? It becomes very muddled. Yeah. I think one of the most important things is to have clarity on what it is factually, neutrally in the marketplace. So talk to the right people to look at your work, to get an opinion that is worthwhile to consider. Yeah. And doing that, I think, is one of the best things you can do and should do when you're putting a portfolio together. Yeah, whether it's two portfolios or one portfolio. So make sure that the people you ask don't criticize and don't love you too much. Yeah. Of course, criticize has to be constructive, but make sure that they are experienced enough. Yeah, they have a strong taste of their own. Yeah, and they have an idea of how to look at your work. Otherwise, it's wasting time. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Let's go into the next segment of today. Let's talk about Eric's work, the evolution of your work, perhaps. I think that will be interesting. Yeah. Do you have anything that you have done in Singapore? Just pull something out, maybe a few pictures that you have done in Singapore, so that it gives better context of what was done.
How do I do that here? Let me see.
Share screen. Right at the bottom, move your mouse, and then a bar would appear below your image.
Okay, maybe I just go to Instagram.
Yep, the green one. Yep. Okay.
Eric, you can show your shittiest work so that all the work that you show now, it becomes like good progress award.
Okay. So one important lesson is don't show your shitty work. So I think I don't think I have anything on here, to tell you the truth.
It's shitty, right?
Yeah. Well,
I wouldn't say that your work was shitty. I mean, I'm saying that maybe show the transition, the evolution of your work, maybe.
Yeah. Well, as you can see, I'm scrolling very, very far down.
Go all the way down, bro. Go all the way down. Go to the ones that you shot. The multiple exposures, the guy on the lamppost stretching his leg, the one running in the deserted HDB. Those were your early works.
So as you can see, I've shot a lot since then.
That's a lot of work. Yeah.
Okay, here we go.
There, yeah, exactly that.
Okay, so this image here was for Pure Yoga of their instructors. That's a fitness instructor in Singapore. That was a model and some influencer at the time. This was done in one of the islands. What's it called? The one that was supposed to be developed into an amusement park.
No idea.
Lobin?
This was in HDB. This is the ones Jeff was talking about. So this was the earlier work. That was again for Pure Yoga, was one of the instructors there. And a lot of yoga. So this was the work at the start whilst I was in Singapore for fitness. And out of this, maybe I'll just keep one, And that was what it was at the time before all of this stuff came up.
Yeah, so you can see, from his Singapore work, with Singapore Light, he was only able to shoot, and he wasn't skillful enough at that point in time to even work with that shitty light that we have in Singapore, for example, right? So I think after being exposed to the Australian light more and being able to see, the very various options that you can do with that clean clarity in the light, his work started to pivot into a slightly more crafted look that comes across a lot more international. So this here you can see he came back to Singapore for a holiday, and then he did a test shoot, right?
Yeah, two test shoots. This is one of them, and this is the other one.
Right. So he started to apply what he knows now, which is that contrasty low light that is in Australia. He came back to Singapore and he hunted for that light, and that means waking up super early to wait and grab those moments, right? He didn't shoot like in those pure yoga stuff where he shot in midday and late morning and mid-afternoon light, So he has already crafted an aesthetic in Australia. Then he came back and he did some test shoots in Singapore, and he held that sensibility already. That sensibility took over. You know what I'm trying to say? Yeah. Agree, Eric?
Yeah. Well, it's over time, right? You develop your own style, and I get a lot of questions about how do you develop style. In my head, the answer is you just do, and it's over time, and it's over shooting lots and lots of pictures. Yeah.
Okay. We've got a question from Nico. Did any of the tactics work better in looking for new clients in Australia, or is it just to try everything and be consistent?
Okay. Nico, for me, trying everything and being consistent is the key. Yeah. And as you go through the process of trying everything, you start to distill what works and what doesn't work. And that's what I did here. So the three main things that I did here is I do a lot of cold calls. It's very old school, right? But I feel it's very personal. And when you call and you get rejected by someone who has a look at your work, they remember you. Yeah, that's the first thing. Second, I go for agencies. Yeah, the people that consolidate the work together and then find the right people. Yeah, so they have access to a lot of agents, a lot of clients, whether they be agencies or direct clients. So when I talk about agents, I talk about photography agencies. So it's something that we have here, I think more than in Singapore for sure, photographer agencies. So all they do is they specialize in gathering photographers in different genres so that they can push it out to their clients. Yeah. So I do a lot of introduction to them. And lastly, I get on LinkedIn and I speak to a lot of people in groups. Yeah. So I do that on a daily basis, really. Every day is a marketing process where you go out and you do a little bit every day, besides shooting. Yeah. Okay. And of course, a lot of test shoots. The more test shoots you do, the more people you meet. the more network you build with the people that can support you as a team to create the job, whether it's your hair and makeup, your production, your rental companies, all of those things. So just about everything, and always consistent, but always review, because if you don't review, you end up doing the stuff that doesn't return you anything.
Let me talk
Can I just have a
curiosity,
follow-up? What do you, since I just am hearing about it for the first time, what kind of LinkedIn groups do you mean?
Okay. If you jump onto LinkedIn, right? Are you a user of LinkedIn, Nico?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So you can join all these, how should I say, photography groups, chat groups, industry groups. At least here we have in Sydney. So, for example, the Sydney Creative Network is one of the groups that I'm in. Yeah.
Okay.
Or Production Sydney or Production Australia.
Okay, now it makes sense. It's probably a lot concerning, what the market is where you work, or are those groups available at all at your market? Okay, cool.
Correct. But a tip I can give you is find the clients that you want to work with. So whatever that may be. So for example, Reebok. Okay, so you look at Reebok and you look at whoever is in Reebok, whether they're employed by Reebok or ex-employees of Reebok. Start clicking on all the names and you will see who they're associated with and what groups they're interested in and what groups they are in. And then you can just explore. And if it suits you, join the group. Yeah. And if it doesn't suit you, you can come out of it later. But keep going in and out of different things and start clicking on different places so it leads you to the right areas. Yeah.
Cool.
Very interesting. Yeah.
Okay,
one question I'm always curious about. Yeah. While you were getting all these things in Australia, I mean, I think I've been to Australia a few times, actually quite a lot of times, and I realized that actually Australia is one of the most racist countries around. Yeah, you're smiling a little bit. So let's talk about, you getting your test shoot done there as an Asian and you getting the jobs there as an Asian as well. Let's talk about this for a bit. Yeah.
Okay. I'll break it into two parts. Okay. One is my growing up years here. Yeah. At every school that I went to, whether it's high school or primary school, I felt the racism, right? But in my corporate and professional life, there was nothing at all. So if I fast forward to my photography career, I've had no issues getting test shoots. I've had the jobs that I've gotten, I've had no issues either in terms of the racism. And I feel that is because the work culture here in terms of how they manage corporates, is very, very, very professional. And when I say professional, I mean it's in legislation that if any of this is reported, all these people can get into a lot of trouble, right? So it's also quite legal. Yeah, but there's no doubt that when you're driving down the street, you can encounter some racism. People calling you names or things like that. But you certainly will not get that experience walking into a KFC ordering your food. Yeah. So I think Australia, although has somewhat that reputation, when it comes to work and the work environment, it's very, very slight. Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Very, very slight. Yeah.
Okay. Going back to that bit about consistency, and I want to just emphasize a little bit about this. I think, Nico, you're asking about consistency in that sense. When I say consistency, if you talk about a style, as a photographer, if you look at Eric's work, there is a certain sense of a narrative within each subset of pictures. He doesn't just do a one-off picture, right? That's something that I always tell photographers to do, is to create a series of images so that you have a narrative, you have a series, it tells a better story, it holds better, your style can evolve within that set of pictures. If you have just one-off pictures in your portfolio, you come across as a very lucky shot photographer. You only got that one shot, and you are not able to develop a style There is no way of being consistent, so to speak. But when you take one subject, say, if I look at your IG, you have some girl in the water diving, right? Start off from her on the beach, putting on her goggles, right? Walking towards the beach, getting into the water, in the water, coming out of the water, drying herself up. That is an entire story, right? And then in this entire story, create a look, create a color grade, create a mood that can carry your style across this whole narrative. And slowly but surely, you will start to develop a style.
Yeah.
Right? Because you are forced to create a look that would carry through that entire story, that entire narrative, from her putting on the goggles to her going into the water to her coming out of the water. Right?
Yeah, makes sense.
So yes, exactly, that's my point. So with that, slowly one series, next series coming out of a guy jumping into the water, and then whatever on the boat, and then so on and so forth.
Yeah.
From there, your portfolio will become so much meatier. It doesn't consist of one-off pictures. Right? Does it make sense?
Yeah, sure.
Because one-off pictures really in today's world looks like a snapshot. It's not crafted, it is a snapshot. In today's world of photography, everybody takes snapshots. Everybody's a photographer. Everybody will whip up their phone and do a snap. And that snap, more often than not, can be pretty good. Right? But if you're very purposeful with your approach, with a very good lens, with a long lens, you have depth in your pictures, you pull in, you pull out, you're telling a story. Yeah?
Yep.
Okay, cool. So that's my interpretation of consistency.
Yep. Okay, let's take a look, see whether there's any other questions. I think Serbi is asking, does cold calling and sending email work? Sending email work if you're starting out and new? Okay, I'm kind of not getting the question. I think she's asking, does cold calling and sending email out to is it? Would you advise that that's the only way to start?
Okay. I won't give you advice on that because I think every market is different, and how you craft the email is also very subjective. Yep. But I think it's necessary for me to do it because it's part of my process of research, right? So to give you an example, now I want to target brands that are second tier to Reebok or Nike and all those kind of things. So I researched the different companies. Okay, so there are Australian companies that do a lot of this, and they're starting to go global. Have any of you heard of Riderwear? Ryderwear, for example. Okay, they're another brand, right? They're a brand that's growing very, very quickly. How do you get to them? You can only write an email. Yeah, if you don't have any contact to them in any other way, you can only write an email to contact@riderwear.com. So it takes me 5 minutes. I have a crafted introduction email with my website with some pictures that you don't have to click on. It's directly in the email. And I just copy and paste and I send it off. 90% of the time, nothing comes back. But that 10% is all you need, really, right? So sometimes it comes back and it doesn't take me long. So I do that. I go to LinkedIn and I connect to the people on LinkedIn. I go to their Instagram, I follow them, I send them a direct message. I go on Facebook, I do the same thing. Yeah. And sometimes I even go to the office if the office is in Sydney. Yeah. I'm walking in the city, I have a meeting anyway. I know this business is on another street. I walk in and I give them my card. So for me, I'm starting from nothing. So I have to do all these things that are low hit rate, I would say. But I have to do it because I'm working hard to get into the marketplace, right? I think the easiest way though is if you know people that are in the space and you start associating with them. Yeah. So here there are a lot of networking events in the creative space. Yeah. Producers might get together, photographers might get together to have beer. Yeah. I'll try and go to as many of those things as I can, right? So that I can mingle and mix with people. And the more people you know, the more opportunities will come up. Yeah. Unfortunately, it's all not very measurable. It's not like a Salesforce.com where you can see where all your calls and your emails are coming from. Yeah, for me, it's not like that here. Yeah, it's hard work.
Cool.
Yeah, it's hard work with sometimes not a lot of return, but you got to do it. Yeah.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about your approach to photography. How do you shoot? You know, what's a typical approach in terms of your process on shoot?
Okay.
Coming up with a shoot. Yeah, what goes in your mind? Let's talk about
Okay.
that.
See, I always come up with a brief first in my own head. Yeah, so an idea of what I want to shoot and what I want to achieve in the session, right? I'll put it down all on a short PowerPoint, yeah, which has the details of the shoot, who's involved, wardrobe references that I like, and images that I like and want to try and move towards. I send this out to everybody that's involved, assistant, model, agency, makeup artist, so on and so forth, and get feedback. Yeah, because many of the shoots I do are test shoots, and they're not shoots that are for brands. So you can get feedback, and sometimes that feedback is quite useful, right? Because it gives you a lot of input. So that's the first step. Come up with an idea and share that idea with the people around you so that everyone can lend a hand and to make it happen. Then on shoot day, I go out there and I kind of let it flow actually. Yeah, I have already an idea in my head, and I will no doubt move towards it because I've spent the last few hours at least, putting it into a brief. So it's ingrained in me the type of images that I want. But I do have a checklist. Yeah, I need a headshot, portrait shot. I need a close-up shot to talk about the character of the person that I'm shooting. I need a mid shot. I need a contextual shot. Right. So I need to go through all of those things. Recently, I've also had a to-do list of making a GIF. Those GIFs that you see moving around. Yeah. So if I see an opportunity to do that, I'll set up a tripod and I'll shoot that off just to give myself the option later. Right. So first step, brief. Second, a checklist on the day of what to shoot. Yeah. And then I move on to shortlisting or editing the pictures. So I might shoot up to, I don't know, say 1,000 pictures, on a day. Yeah. And I'll pick down to 50, and then I'll give myself a rest, after the edit, and then I'll cut it down again into different sets of 5 to 10 pictures each. And most of the time, I end up with just 2 sets per shoot. So once that's done, I start retouching. Yeah, retouching meaning simple skin cleanup, move things around, and then the color grade, and that's it. Yeah. That's the overall process. Yeah. I can get into any details if you guys are keen. Any part of that. Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about color grade then. I mean, you've came to me in your early years, struggling with color grade. You've always asked me how do I color grade? What is right, what is wrong? But over the years you've started to mature quite a lot, and then now you are almost at a place where you are quite right already. I'm very, very happy with where you are. Tell us a little bit about your color grading journey and how you were colorblind and now you've found your eye in color, so to speak.
Okay, I don't know whether I found my eye because I still feel a lot of struggle. But I'll tell you a story. I remember sitting at Jeff's desk during our 2.0 session. 2.0 session is where you sit down and you hear the truth, basically, right? And he gave me a filter. He said, look at this filter, see what it does, right? So I started from there, actually. So the process started from me looking at filters, and understanding why the filters look good, right? How come it's nice? Yeah. And from there, I started playing with it myself. Yeah, I never used filters as a to apply to my work, but I use it as a reference point to see what might work, and then I go and I do it from the beginning, from Camera Raw or from Capture One. So it's never from the filter, but I do go into it to just flip through, because the programs that you can get, what are the two biggest ones? The Nick one and the Alien Skin, right? Two of examples of these filters. It makes it very easy for you to go in and look at all the different colors, the films from the past. So it's very easy to see everything in one go. So I did that for a while. I'd say about 2 years. Until the point where I started to be able to see what colors fit and how they fit. Whether it's color theory or whether it's my own emotional response to the color. And from there, you just play. I do spend a lot of time on color grading. I spend a lot more time than I would like to. Simply because I still don't have that sense of what I love. And it should be in this direction that I'm going to. So I play a lot. On any one image, I can have 4 or 5 versions of it, just in terms of color. Just to play, see alternatives, and really mix it up. And once I see something I like, I just choose it, and then I go down that path for all the pictures in that series. Because I believe that the color bind is quite important if you have one set of images to put up. So that's my color grade process. It could take anywhere from 1 day to 1 week. Sometimes I can't figure it out. I can't come to a conclusion myself. So I let it rest for a couple of days, and then I come back to it.
Cool. And in terms of color grading now, what are you using?
Capture One. I use Capture One. To get an idea of what I want the overall pictures to look like, because Capture One is my primary asset management tool, right? Where you can see all your pictures in any set that you want by very quickly selecting it in terms of your color filter or your star filter. Once I finalize that set, I put it out to RAW into my Mac OS system, and then I will use Photoshop to do everything else from there. Retouching and coloring.
Do you grade on the go, or do you only grade when you're back home?
When I tether, I grade on the go, right? But that doesn't necessarily mean it's the final grade. It could really just change all of a sudden. But if I have a brief from the client, right, then I will grade on set and keep that grade all the way through with adjustments. Obviously.
Okay.
But you know what? Clients also they have references, but on set the people that I'm with, they feel also quite temperamental about it. Oh yeah, that's only the reference, but you know what? Let's make it a little bit warmer, and then it just all rolls from there. So it's quite fluffy.
I mean, there's two sides to grading on set, grading on the go, in a sense. Number one, you as the photographer, you do not see a raw image. You see you see your shoot looking a little bit more cinematic, a little bit more polished. When you're grading on the go, when you're grading while shooting, that could elevate everybody's excitement on set to seeing something a little bit more polished, rather than just straight out of camera, no tweaks, nothing, everything just looks flat. So it does help on that level, from a very psychological way of making people feel more complete when they see something and they go, wow, this is pretty amazing already. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
that is definitely why I always make it a point to wow people on set and have a very determined grade while shooting, right? And you can say that's a base grade. That's what I usually call a base grade. Is I'm grading based on what is at the moment, what feels right, what looks right. But that being said, when you are doing a base grade, at least you know what you're short of, what you're falling short of, what you are not having enough of. You can do tweaks
That's right.
by way of opening up your shadows with a reflector, creating more contrast with a negative feel. All these things can be caught early so that when you are grading towards that direction, you know that you need more blacks, you need more highlights, you need more midtones.
That's right.
So all these things does allow you to work a lot more efficiently for the future, right? You're thinking steps ahead. You're projecting your vision. When days, hours later that you're going to sit down, you're going to grade, then you go, oh fuck, I should have put a big negative feel here to get more contrasty shadows, but now I'm at my limit. I can't get any more contrasty than that. It's too flat now, right?
Correct.
So these are the things that that is very, very helpful when you work. I always feel.
Yeah.
Agree? Yeah.
Knowing your gear too, how far it can go, right? Your dynamic range, how far you can push it, how far Capture One can push it, how far your software can push it.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, one of the things, the skies here in Australia can be very, very, very blue, right? So a lot of the times you want to pull it down, and you need maybe to take a different exposure for it so that you can use a different file for it. Or you're shooting into the sun, you need a different exposure. So those kind of things, Shooting Tethered will give you all that information on set. That's right.
Super.
Okay, so there's a question for you asking about how do you improve yourself without a mentor for color grading? Is it even possible? Maybe Eric, you want to share a little bit on this?
Well, I don't know because I had a mentor, so I don't know what it's like learning without a mentor. I would imagine learning without a mentor is very possible, but it'll just take a lot of time, a lot of time and a lot of mistakes. Some might say experience is the best teacher, in the world. But also you don't have to reinvent the wheel. And I'd rather spend my time drinking beer and spending time with my family, rather than making mistakes, because it's a very emotional process. Mentors are great, I think, Brian. They cut the time short very, very quickly. Based through their experiences or based through their specialty. When you're doing something for so long, you just have an inherent sense of what works and what doesn't work. And even practically, they might know where the doors are open for you because they've been around for enough time and long enough time. So in my 7-8 years, I think the mentoring is a big help. For me to quickly accelerate the steps towards getting better pictures. If I can add something a little bit more esoteric, it's I think your mentor will also understand your emotional matters. So some things that your friends would, because maybe they're not in the creative space, or your wife won't because you've got so much of the other shit there with it. But your mentor will understand it because they're always looking at you as someone that has a goal and has a goal together with him or her that you're with. So I think mentoring is very, very important for both support and direction and where you want to go. The rest of it in today's world, you go onto YouTube, you can buy, I don't know what's that education Photoshop thing, for $200 a year and you can download everything. Learning is no longer a difficulty. Yeah, in fact, it's more accessible than any other time. Yeah, that we've been living. Yeah, but what you don't have is, apart from the skill set, is the guidance, the human guidance to move in the right direction, and that's quite important to me. So I think it's quite useful. Yeah.
Okay, I have a
So I
question
would
for
recommend
everyone.
it.
Yeah, I have a question for everybody here. Okay, those who are listening, if you don't have a mic, okay, you can type into the chat box. I want to see a participation here. How many of you actually went through photography with a mentor? Okay, whether was it color grading or technical skills and things like that. Yeah, just by a show of hands, maybe you can type yes, no, or you can even say, just unmute yourself, say whether you have been through a mentorship, for how long roughly, and what was your experience like. Yeah, let's just participate here a little bit.
Let me talk a bit about this mentorship thing. I mean, it is not exactly mentorship sometimes. It is coaching, right? You think about it, right? You think about it. Tiger Woods, Lewis Hamilton or whatever, all these athletes have a coach telling them, if this is the right stroke, a trained eye looking from the sidelines, right? Who has that experience, who has the ability to adjust your swing, right? That is what essentially mentors do, right? Because they are trained and they know how to see things from the sidelines, right? And just like what Eric said, we are essentially, we come from a very learned, experienced eye, having made all the mistakes that you shouldn't swing it this way, but you should swing it this way. It's that and that. So and that's what photography is, right? It is this, I always draw parallels of photography to athletes being coached, right? I mean, you think about Michael Jordan. He is amazing, but he needs a good coach that would bring out his amazingness, to give him the right play to execute that triangle defense or whatever it might be. I have no idea about basketball, but I've watched The Last Dance and I'm so in love with the idea of it, right? And essentially that's what it is. Seriously.
Well, you don't know what you don't know, and you need to find it.
Yeah.
And mentoring isn't like you have one sifu for the rest of your life. You can have, depending on who you find. There's a very old Chinese saying, right? That when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. So you will find that in different people that you speak to. Yeah. So for photographer mentors, there are many out there. Look for the one that connects with you best. Closest to you. Understands you, understands your market, understands your style. Geographically close. If you can get physically together, even better. Honestly, I would never get onto a coach that is far away, personally, because I felt the effect of having a close physical relationship with Jeff when I was with him. And don't take that the wrong way, but sitting there talking, going through pictures, is very, very useful. Yeah.
Okay, so I think I saw someone mentioning about going to NAFA for classes. Okay, the difference about being coached and going for class is two different things. For example, you can pick up a lesson, you can learn something, but that lesson that you take up may not propel you to succeed in a certain way that a coach can bring you to. Yeah, so that's the difference. Like anybody can sign up for a class or workshop and you can learn a general technique. You can even hone that technique yourself by doing it often enough. But there will be a point where your learning curve tapers off. Yeah. So in everybody's learning capabilities, there's always this point where even an elite athlete will just plateau. Yeah, we call it plateauing because you reach a point where you can never improve, or the improvement will just keep on going on a straight line and gradually up. And how do you know that that is your peak? Because the world record, the 100 meters world record, has always been broken, after a few years, and then some maybe do it once, some maybe do it twice. Carl Lewis do it a few times and things like that. Yeah, how do you actually break yourself? It's because you constantly need to change your coach, or your coach have to change the way that you're being trained in a way that suits only you and no one else. That's what a coach does. Yeah. So having, 30 students going to a workshop or going to a degree program or anything doesn't change the fact that you will hit this plateau in a very short time. Because even if you're able to complete the class, means that you are a proficient learner. But that's all it takes, for you to just be anyone else. Simple as that. So that's the reason why I see there's a difference between going to classes, signing up for workshops, and then finding someone that truly understands, like what Eric said, truly understands what you're made of, what is suitable for you, who can tell you that, hey, your kind of work, maybe you need to try to work on this business model, and maybe you need to change the way you shoot, because coherently you are shooting this style and it's your strength that you didn't realize. Yeah, the polishing of a gem to make it shine. That's what a good mentor or a good coach potentially is to you. Yeah.
I'd like to give an example here. So retouching, for example, retouching skin, portraits, beauty, right? You can learn online how to use multiple techniques in Photoshop to get the skin right? But how far to push it is down to taste and down to your own eye on what is acceptable, what is not acceptable, and what you find pretty and what you find not pretty.
Mm-hmm.
Having a coach that has an idea of the extent to which you can push it, you're not going to get from a class. You're not going to get from a tutorial that you download. Yeah. So that interaction becomes very, very valuable. Yeah. To be able to tell you even when to stop. Yeah.
I think, okay, I might sound like a dick for a while. Okay, bear with me. All right. Let me try to articulate this properly. I'm not trying to put anybody down. I'm not trying to say, one is better than the other. But what I'm trying to say is, for example, this may be very controversial. I've always believed that, one who is mentoring or one who is teaching should always be killing it in the real world, should always be successful, doing the right thing, still acing it, still making it, and still shooting amazing and getting amazing jobs or whatever it might be. To be able to be instructing, to be able to be coaching, to be able to be mentoring, and not somebody who is a full-time teacher teaching something and cannot quite make it in the real world. That sounded really awful, I know. But at the same time, these are career educators who made a living out of educating. No wrong in that, it is what it is. But that's kind of what I'm trying to say, right? That the weight of somebody who is killing it in the real world and yet still teaching you or coaching you or mentoring you bears so much more weight, because whatever he's doing and whatever he's dishing out is, being done by him himself. You know what I mean? So in that sense, I think, what you take away would be so much more powerful, would be so much more relevant, because it's proven. It's
real time.
And it's real time, yeah. So I've always made it that part of me, if I cannot make it properly in photography and I'm not killing it, I'm not going to be preaching to tell people how to do photography, because I think that is very, hypocritical, and it's seriously wrong to do it that way, because you see, in today's world, sadly today, right, there are so many photographers who are half-baked, a little bit of skill, going out there, shouting very loud, and and then stepping up to say, I'm teaching you and whatever, but are you really teaching the right things? Did you really quite make it? So that's sad to me, because not on these people. It's sad for those people who actually gave him an audience, right? Because those are the people who don't know better. They are just hungry to learn. And there are so many of these kind of people out there dishing out stuff, right? That everybody is just learning. So you are all inundated with so many different rights and wrongs, and to the point where what's right and what's wrong anymore. So I must caution you, in your journey to learning to be a better photographer, is to really know where to learn from. Pick and choose and be so picky about who you're going to be learning from. That is a very important thing that you need to have.
Yep.
Right. Yep.
But okay, let's just put back into perspective what Jeff said. Okay, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't go to a school and learn from the
That's what
teachers, because
exactly.
okay, for example, let's just put for example, okay, someone who couldn't make it in the industry decides that, hey, I think I'm going to go to school and teach photography. There's nothing wrong in that, okay? Because why? Because everything that's taught in school follows a curriculum. And that's the reason why people go to school, to learn a basic skill, to learn a slightly advanced skill that is all textbook ready. But does it mean that if you graduate from photography as with a degree, does it make you an excellent photographer? No, it doesn't. Not unless you're enrolled into one of the best schools in maybe New York or things like that, where they only have 10 students in that entire cohort.
Very quickly, okay, Brian, I also have to say this.
Yeah.
There's always a last in class. Okay?
Yeah.
There's a last in class in pilot school. There's a last in class in doctor school. There's a last in class in surgeon school. Okay?
That's brutal.
Right? Okay? There's always that one guy who just made it, who just passed, and he's flying your plane, and he's operating on you. Okay? These guys became doctors and they became pilots. Right? There will always be that. So it is, you know what I'm trying to say, right?
Yeah.
There is no guarantees, even like what Brian said. You go and you attend a masters in photography, you come out, you're gonna be what?
Yeah. So just be very careful with that. I mean, from where you're learning from, especially if the best way is to maybe look at a good track record, ask around people, the reputation, look at the portfolio of the photographer's work. For example, if I look at Eric's work, okay, I mean, he may not think that he's ready to be a mentor, but at the same time, I think if you're asking him to guide you on curating a very good fitness portfolio, I believe that he could offer his time to you and guide you to do something that is relatively okay. That means that if you're really starting out from scratch, he could be a good mentor to you for a certain stage. And then once you get to his level, then it's time to look for someone else. Maybe like you can look for Jeff and then do that same thing while getting you from this phase to the next phase, and then so on and so forth. Yeah. So, but having said that, you also need to depend on yourself as well, where you see yourself growing, whether you're able to take criticism to like really go down low. That means that every time you reach this phase, you reset back halfway there and then climb another 100% and then come back another 100% again. Yeah, it's all about that before you can even start to increase yourself. Yeah, it's like the stock market. Everything is always relative to a graph in life. Yeah, so I think that's one way to look at and mentorship and learning. Yeah. Maybe let's go to the next topic before everybody starts.
There's a question here for you, Brian.
Yeah. There's a question. Okay, can you elaborate on how possible? Okay, to find like I mentioned, to find a mentor, I think first and foremost you need to find a photographer that you feel is successful in his or her industry. Now, not everyone can teach. So for someone who is very, very good in the industry, you need to see whether this person has the heart to actually impart. Because I've been teaching for quite a few years, about close to 5 years, and I believe that I sort of made it in the wedding industry in my third to fourth year. I actually closed down the company, restarted the company just to see where I am, and things turned out that I made it again in 3 years later. Yeah, having a hard reset by choice. So I've been teaching the way to run a business in the photography world. I have not really teach so much of advanced photography because I'm still learning from Jeff and myself, right? So now you need to find someone who's on the same wavelength, who's able to teach you and share with you unreservedly. That's one. Because any mentor that holds back, thinking that I can't tell you everything and anything and everything, that it's already something that is not a real teacher. Yeah, maybe this person wants you to learn and then leech off you for a period of time, or try to find something out of you. But for the last 3 years, Jeff and I have been giving unreservedly to this community, and we don't want anything in return, because I think both of us are making quite good money in our own terms, in our day job, to speak. Yeah, and this is for us to give back. We don't need to ask for your donations. We don't need you to throw money at us or anything like that. But at the same time, if you want us to coach you, yeah, we can be there for you as well. I think Serbi.
Carry on.
Yeah, I think Serbi, that's the only way that you can find a mentor. It's like buying a new house like that. You go in there, you feel that, hey, this is it. You can try so many V8 cars, and then there'll be only one that you feel that's the one. Yeah.
So okay, very quickly, let me share with you this. All right, this book, okay, made a lot of sense to me when I read it. It's a really, really good book. Okay, if you read the write-up about this book, it encapsulates what we have been talking about. Mozart wasn't born with perfect pitch. Most athletes are not born with any natural advantage. 3 world-class chess players were sisters whose success was planned by their parents before they were even born. So Anders Ericsson, this guy who wrote this book, Peak, right, has 30 years of studying the special ones, the geniuses, the sports stars, the musical prodigies. And he put it so eloquently in this book about his findings in the fact that the innate gift of talent is a myth, right? Exceptional individuals are born with just one unique ability, and that's shared by all of us. The ability to develop our brains and bodies through our own efforts, right? His research was on the inspiration of the popular 10,000 hour rule, which was made, popular by Gladwell. That's right, Malcolm Gladwell, right? So he tells us this rule is only the beginning of your story. It's not just the hours that are important, but how you use them. So this all comes in his form of what he calls passive practice, right? That he highlights a lot about in this book, about how all of us, are actually experiencing it. But when we get coached, it's about that guidance, that ability to correct, what you are training, because you can be training the same stroke, for 10,000 hours, but if you are not correcting it and you're not adjusting it, you're never going to be good as well, right? So do yourself a favor, pick up this book, amazing book. It has changed the way, I see myself as a mentor, the way I see myself as a coach. and I and you will see how interesting it is to be coached and mentored if it makes sense. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So I think this book also, because I mean, from young, I've always been an athlete, to begin with before I'm a photographer. And one thing that I've learned throughout this whole journey from an athlete to a photographer was that it's always mind over body, because pain is temporary, but the glory lasts forever. Yeah, that's my belief. Yeah, from day one since 12 years old. Yeah. So that has been the way that I've been living as well. And I believe that if you look at Eric's work, you can see a very strong hint of that perseverance as well. From Malaysia to Australia to Singapore and then back to Australia, and then he's grinding it with the work that he doesn't want to sell, but he's working those to pay for bills. At the same time, pushing his craft so at this level where he may or may not make it, but he's pushing, and he knows what he wants. He knows the end goal, and that's where he's going to. Yeah, I think that's one important lesson that we should take from Eric. Yeah.
Okay, there's a question here from Gabriel. Work hard. If you're not going to work hard yourself, they're going to make you work hard. Yeah. I'm a hard worker, and even I felt the pressure is not the right word, but the encouragement to shoot more. If I can recount my first experience, my first assignment, believe it or not, was to do nothing. No taking photos for 1 month. No camera for 1 month. No phone for 1 month. Phone camera.
I remember banning you from touching. Yes.
Yeah. So you would think that it's unorthodox, but the process really helped. Because it gave you time to think about what you want to do, how you like to see things. You're not polluting yourself with the images you're taking. You're not being distracted. So you don't. I didn't see a lot of the purpose until I went through it. Yeah. So I think the first thing is they'll make you work hard. The second thing is I think you have to have some faith as well. Yeah. It's not a button that you press that you get a mentee and you become a hero photographer. There's a shitload of work to do, and there's a lot of faith that you have to have in the process. Yeah. So yeah, be open, be very, very open, and work really hard, because at the end of it, it's not them that makes us good. It's us that makes us good with help, with some guidance, and it'll just get us there quickly. No doubt we'll get there ourselves, but it gets us there a lot more quickly. Yeah. Brian and Jeff, Sir has asked this a couple of times about what mentors look for in a mentee.
Suddenly you are hosting the show. I missed that out entirely, man. Yeah. And then our guest speaker actually have to come in. Okay, I'm sorry about that, sir.
Because you're on your iPad, right, Brian? Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, there are a few ways to go about it. I mean, there's this thing called internship. Obviously, you approach a certain photographer, put up your hand and say, I'm willing to work for you to learn from you. More often than not, photographers are always looking for interns, who, you'll be paid miserably, but you will learn a lot. You walk away with a lot of knowledge. That is one way to get to go find a mentor, so to speak. So there are different kinds of versions of mentorships, right? There is the paid ones, there is the free ones, there is the trade ones where you give me your time, you assist me, you help me, and then I will teach you, you know. So it's that kind of relationship. You know, mentors walk away with nothing. And even for us, me and Brian, when we do our mentorship, our coaching programs, you know, it's priced very thoughtfully, because we know most of the photographers that we are helping don't have deep pockets as well. So, you know, it's all priced very attractively, in a way where, you know, it's not cheap, but it's not expensive. You know what I'm trying to say? So, you know, where we give you our time, we give you our experience, and we help expedite your process, if you can say that. And then, you know, you're on your way, right? So these are the few various ways of going about, you know, getting mentorship, so to speak. I seriously don't want to make tonight about selling something, you know, to be honest. You know, we are not trying to sell our service, right? We are just trying to show you the beauty and the advantages of, you know, working alongside somebody who is way better than you, right? I would say the process of me mentoring photographers has always been multi-pronged for me. Okay, I'm a bit of a sadist. Seriously, to be honest, I'm a bit of a sadist. I love fucking myself over, and by my way of fucking myself over is sharing everything that I know with people, being a very open mentor, teaching my mentees everything and anything, so that they are behind chasing me down, right? Because at some point, I'm going to go into a job and I'll be competing against them and pitching against them, and they'll be at my level at some point. And you can look at Eric already. He possesses that skill set that is almost similar to mine. His work is almost as good as mine. And he shares quite a lot of the sensibilities that I have. That's another hole that mentees will often go into. And I've always been telling, you know, Eric, be careful from learning too much from me, taking away too much from me, to the point where you start to look like me, right? That's the biggest trap mentees will fall into. They will start, you know, doing all my styles and everything, and then because they are still finding themselves. So the only way mentees and young photographers know is to copy and to emulate. That's what kids do, right? Babies do, right? They emulate the adults, they emulate their fathers and mothers, right? So you have to be smart enough to take what you need, learn what you can, but yet put yourself into it to develop you. Eric should be Eric and not Eric, a version of Jeff. You know what I'm trying to say? And I've been telling Eric that for the longest time. Don't do too much of me. Be very careful, or else, you know, but good thing he's not in Singapore right now. We are not competing in the same market in some ways, right? You know, so by all means, you know, he's there, he's unique. But the minute he comes to Singapore, we will be both having kind of similar work. And maybe there might be some discrepancies there, you know, and that might become a bit tricky, maybe, you know, because then, you know, Jeff will be that, you know, high-end, expensive photographer, and then Eric will come in at a certain price and undercut me, and you know what I mean, you know, so yeah, it's a very tough thing, and you must be very careful not to walk that line.
Yeah. So what a good mentor can potentially do for you is to guide you to shoot the way that you want your style to be. For example, if let's say you are a very experienced photographer and then you want to go up the next rung, the next step, this photographer can potentially look at your work, tell you what are the mistakes that you are making or coherently making that you do not know about, but at the same time guide you towards your direction in the way that you want to do certain things. Yeah, so that's what a good mentor does. A good mentor doesn't want you to become his or her shadow. Like what one of you, someone just said, yeah,
Delvin.
you know, like what Delvin said, you don't want to become your mentor's shadow. That is one thing that we don't want as well for mentees. In fact, we want to see you succeed. that's the whole thing. You know, when we share our things, our craft, our ideas to our mentees, we have this one thing in mind, is that one day when you succeed, you know, I feel proud, like my own kids or things like that. Yeah. So that's the only thing that we look for, is that you do not give up and you just keep on fighting. Yeah.
I mean, going back to finish up what I said, you know, by doing all that, you know, I consciously am putting, you know, fuel, you know, behind me, and having all these young photographers that I mentor chasing me, and in turn makes me work harder in my day job, right, to become even better than them, even better, so they will never catch up with me. I'm always evolving. I'm always one step ahead of them, and I'm always killing it in the real world. And then I slowly dish out, you know, whatever I have. So it's my way of pushing myself is by fucking myself over, by teaching you guys everything that I have, for example. You know, so it's a very warped way perspective of looking at things, but that's how I've been doing a lot of things in my life. You know, because if I quietly do certain things, nobody will know. And being, you know, a lazy procrastinator typically that I can be, right, you know, I would just at some point sink myself. So I put all these little time bombs everywhere, sprinkle them around, so that I'm always on my toes, right? That's something that you can apply in your life as well, right? From this very simple, you know, psychological mind fuck that you play with your own self. That's what I do a lot as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, cool. Yeah, any other questions for Eric? You know, you know what? I'm very happy. No one asked what camera you use, what light you use.
Yes.
Yeah, you know, that shows a certain maturity
Yeah,
in our
majority.
crowd, you know. Yeah, and that's really cool. Because it's really not, you know, not whatever it is. It is the photographer himself, you know. And I'm very thankful for that. Okay, super. If there isn't any questions, we'll call this a night. Of course, if any of you interested to be coached by us, you know, drop us a line, email us, or, you know, drop your email in this chat. We will drop you materials if you need to know more about what we do as coaches for photographers. Yeah, again, it's not us trying to hard sell anything. We are just trying to share our passion for wanting to make better photographers. That's what RAW has been for us this past 3 years, and this is what we have been always wanting to do. We've always wanted to elevate the industry, so that in turn it helps us elevate our own industry. So it's a very sympathical thing, right? So that's kind of what we are doing for the community, for the industry, by giving back in our small way. All right, cool.
So I think Serbi has a question for Eric. Yeah. So Eric,
Yeah.
maybe you wanna take this directly to Serbi. What are, you know, the different types of genre that you're actually doing, you're covering? I mean everybody knows that you're doing fitness. So what are the other things that, you know, feeds you, your family, and yeah.
Okay. Serbi, I shared before my my Instagram for the different portfolios that I have. So if you scroll up on the chat, you should be able to see it. Yeah. I do architecture as well as shoot some model portfolios just to get by and to make some money outside of fitness. Yeah. Ethos behind it: make a pretty picture. You know, every picture has to be as good as you can get it to be. Yeah, based on the canvas that you have, whether it's a building or a model. Yeah. So I always try and just push it as much as I can. But I will say to you though, my fitness is my main portfolio. What you see on Eric_Yip_XL is all the stuff that I play with so that I can experiment. And I experiment with black and white. I experiment with some motion. I experiment there and I fail, I make mistakes there. And so that's all very non-commercial. And then what I gather that is nice, that I think I can apply to my main set of work, I will apply it to. Yeah. So I have different, I do these different things just to practice, just to exercise the fingers and the eyes. Yeah.
Okay, and another follow-up question from Serbi. What pushed you to do so many different genres? A pretty picture?
Okay, really, there's only two genres, Serbi. One is my fitness and lifestyle work, and architecture. Yeah, architecture I do because I love buildings. I've always loved landscapes and architecture developments, so I shoot that. And it's also a business decision that I've made. They're two very, very different spheres of how photography is applied to. So when the industry goes down for one side, hopefully it doesn't go down for the other. So at least I have two different portfolios to stand on. Yeah. Right now, for example, there's no model work, there's no fitness or advertising work going on in Sydney. But I'm shooting a lot of corporate work. I'm shooting interiors. I'm shooting architecture because you don't need to have a whole team of people running that. So at least I'm continuing, making some money that I can continue and go out and shoot. Yeah. So that's the main reason why I have two very different portfolios. Yeah.
I mean, end of day, you need to, Eric's dream job is a fitness photographer. But while he chases his dream and get his dream clients and dream jobs in that sphere, he needs that everyday, base that puts food on the table to feed family. Right?
Yeah.
All of us need to do that. We need to have something that feeds the family, right? So that everything else is what feeds the family while he is on the parallel chasing that dream, right? While he's doing that, at least he has something to fall back on to feed. Because if he only just chase that without this, at some point he's just going to plunge because he's going to go hungry. His family is going to go hungry because he's only chasing one.
Yeah.
Do I make sense? Yeah.
So you got to do what you have to do.
Yeah.
What you don't see a lot of there is a lot of LinkedIn headshots and stuff that passports, all that stuff. I shoot, but you need to get the couple of $100 to continue shooting the rest. Yeah. So
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, Serbi, thanks for the question. Appreciate it.
Cool.
Yep. So if you guys have any questions for us, for me and Jeff, you can always go to our Instagram. Okay, drop us a message if you're interested to be mentored or you want to know even more about it. Just to talk about it, it's okay. We will help you. We will guide you to the next step, and we'll probably advise you on what's the right thing to do as well. You can just drop by onto our rawspace.sg on Instagram, and that's the easiest way to get to both of us. All right, cool. Yeah.
Hey.
So, thank you, everyone.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Eric.
Night from Sydney,
Brian.
Thanks, guys. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
It's late in Sydney. Thank you, Eric, for spending the time. Big love to Kai and Alan.
Will do.
I'll see you soon, brother.
Okay. Take care, all. See
Thanks,
you.
Eric.
All right.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Good night.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, guys.